In this video, I want to talk about building your own RP server and Permadeath. I once tried to build my own role-playing server with its own ecosystem and hardcore rule set. I had big dreams, but I stopped. Now, before I go into any details, in case you're not familiar with the tools I was using, Neverwinter Nights 1 was one of the main players in introducing text-based role-playing persistent worlds back in 2002. You can watch the video I made about role-playing in the link below. It has one of the most powerful and user-friendly world-building editors any game world designer can hope for. About a year ago, I tried to design my own persistent world. The last time I tried to do that, it was 2009. I had about 15 to 20 players at most, and it ran for a few months before I realized it has consumed too much of my life, and I had to abandon the project. Well, this time I was building a game world based on The Witcher and The Lord of the Rings. I'm always inspired by those fantasy worlds, and I even scripted a unique ecosystem. The main cornerstone of this game world was to be permadeath, as well as hardcore role-playing. I started this project because, well, first off, because I played in one and I really enjoyed it. It was called Haze, and it existed back in 2003 for about a year or two. It no longer exists, and there is nothing quite like it these days. Though I've seen some projects that seem to strike a nearly similar chord, but none of them was as ruthless as Haze in its insistence on permadeath. That's what sold it for me. No beating around the bush with death. We have to talk about death. If you die, you just respawn. But there is also the concept of RP death. RP death is a stricter way to enforce death. It just means that if your character's death was random, you can respawn. But if your character's death was a part of a storyline, it could be permanent. This leaves a lot of room for judgment as to what counts as RP death and what doesn't. Now, there is also full hardcore permadeath, which doesn't mediate between RP death and random death. Death is death. Well, as long as it's not caused by a bug or something. Such RP servers with the ruthless policy on permadeath nearly don't exist. The text-only Armageddon MUD would be associated with full permadeath. This kind of death system is just not a popular choice among game world owners. No one wants their players to stop playing because their character died. But I like it, because I know that everyone is held to the same rule. Hell, back when I played in Haze, players were dying off like flies, especially during mass fighting. You log in the next day, you hear 3 well-established characters died, the captain, the sergeant, the corporal died defending the city, and suddenly the next in line gets promoted to captain, or there is a new mayor. It was exciting because of it. It added a layer of unpredictability. It took some power away from the hands of the game masters or arbitrators to decide what counts as RP death. Death is death. It is blind to however liked or hated your character is. Any second, any moment, in any time you played, your character's life, as well as everyone else's, was at the ultimate risk of dying. Nothing was guaranteed, and the fear that I held for my character's life was comforted by the fact that everyone's life was on the line. This was the nature of the beast. We were all connected, and it made not only role-playing more special, but the time you get to role-play your character more special. It makes your character's survivability more valuable. Another day that you survive is another small victory where you get to establish your character, while others may die. It's a sort of a calculated risk. You can always go on an adventure and get yourself in trouble. Your death can be random and meaningless. But who says your character's death has to be special? Okay, now let's get back to my game world, and let's acknowledge that well-established fact that building and maintaining a game world is just too time-consuming. Even if we ignore all the scripts that one has to write and the world-building design, which is a whole lot of work in of itself, driving the storyline is another full-time job. So hosting a successful persistent game world like that cannot be accomplished by one person, unless one commits their entire existence for it. Thing is, I was sort of willing to do that. So why did I stop? Well, my biggest mistake was wanting to add voice chat feature to Neverwinter Nights 1. I just thought that voice chatting is cool. But even ignoring the enormous technical difficulties of accomplishing that, adding a voice chat plugin to an old game is all wrong. It felt like playing Doom 1 on an 8K screen. It sort of defeats the purpose of what this game is and what role-playing is in this game. I mean, it's text-based, and I realized I should respect it. I should respect its text-based tradition and not try to corrupt it. Which brings me to my second point. I kinda always felt that I'm using the wrong engine. As amazing as Neverwinter Nights is, it's too old. It's boring, and we've been there. We need something new. So my initiative was doomed to fail to begin with. I was trying to make a car out of a horse. It just can't go as fast. I guess it ultimately boils down to poor planning. But you learn from your mistakes and move on. Bygones be bygones, as they say. These days I keep looking forward to what's next. I believe we have a lot to look forward to this decade. House of Adalar, for instance, is something I'm keeping my eyes on as it comes with built-in world editing tools. It allows for 4 players at the moment, but with modding capabilities, this initial limitation can be lifted. Maybe once it releases and grows a community around it, we'll have something to talk about.